Okay, so today is day 10, and really what I thought I would talk to you about is deal flow and how do you start seeing properties. I'm actually off to Edmonton today to go look at the balance of a portfolio of industrial buildings. And on my way home, I had a conversation with a gentleman who, well, there was two guys on the call actually, and they have about a $31 million apartment building that they're looking at purchasing. And I'm not going to give you any of the details because it's they don't have it under contract yet. But in the conversation, one of the gentlemen, what they really wanted to know was, Shane, how would you structure this deal? Because they're a little bit far apart on price. And while I'm not going to get in, this isn't a negotiating video, it's still important because there was two things that kind of came out of that conversation. The first was one of my firm beliefs that you need to have control in the deal. And when I say control, what I'm really talking about is you want to have a purchase and sale agreement and you essentially have control over, let's say, 45 days of due diligence or 30 days, whatever that happens to be. And the second thing that came out of it was a comment that one of the gentlemen said on the phone, and that was this concept of hidden barriers of entry. And I thought it was such a great way to put it that I would talk a little bit about it today, because new investors into commercial real estate, they see, they experience these hidden barriers. And really what that is like, how do you get the attention of commercial brokers and sellers in the market if you have no track record? And what I thought I would do is kind of give you a couple of examples. Today, the market is a seller's market. I think in most cases, that's the situation. And what that means is brokers can pick and choose who they want to work with. And so in '09, when I went into the US, I literally cold called a lady at Colliers in Houston, and that was how the first deal got done. Now, once we did that deal, every broker in Houston and Dallas kind of saw us, and because it was '09, there wasn't very many transactions taking place. We started to see deal flow like crazy. Now, in today's market, you're not gonna that just wouldn't happen. I mean, deals are happening like every single day, and so just because you close a $20 or $30 million deal, you're still going to get the attention of the market. Don't get me wrong, but it won't have the same impact that it did in '09. So, if I was starting new and when I go into new markets, here are a few of the strategies that I would suggest. Number one, I talk to junior brokers. I'll call everybody on the list generally. So let's say I get a CA or a package from a brokerage, and I'll see that's 5 or 6 names on it. Well, I'll call all of them, knowing that it's unlikely I'm going to get the top 2 guys on that listing package. And you can just tell by their title, right? Executive VP, executive senior, like there's just alphabets. There's just lots of, you can tell who is the senior and who is the junior. So that's number one. Number two is I'll go to smaller shops, right? So the big shops are going to be, Colliers, Cushman, CB Richard Ellis, Avis and Young, in the US, Newmark, JLL. So you're going to have these big shops, and they're typically a bit more difficult to break into those shops. Just my experience, right? I mean, these guys are sophisticated, and I'm not saying that smaller shops are not sophisticated, because I've worked at Avis and Young and I've worked at small shops. And what I can tell you though is that when you're at a small shop, you typically just don't have the same, I don't know if it's the same ego or whatever it is, but you're probably more apt. You don't have the same marketing budget, and so you're probably going to accept more inbound calls. Now, it's not to say that smaller shops have less sophisticated buyers. I actually find that I get better deals at a smaller shops because they may be off market, they might be pocket listings, and so that's actually one of the real big strategies I use. The second, it's kind of parallel to that, is going to like residential real estate brokerages that have commercial agents that work there. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but it's similar to the smaller shops. So those would be kind of 3 areas if you're going to brokers. Number 4, have someone on your team that has experience, right? That's one of the benefits that people that work with me get. They're able to kind of leverage me and my name and my reputation but it doesn't have to be mean. I mean, if you can find someone else in your market that's going to allow you to kind of borrow their name, so to speak, you want to really make sure that you get their that they agree to that and that they understand how it's being used. But if they're going to be in the deal, then there shouldn't be any issues with it. And then the last one, which is kind of interesting, is to overpay for a property. And I've kind of written about it today, where I was in a situation where we were selling a property, and it was the first time I was on the sell side, and this was a big deal. And we partnered up with a major shop in Dallas to run the process, right? Because they had the database. And it was one of the coolest things that I was part of. And it was to see how they structured a bid process. And what I can tell you is, like, of the 20 offers that came in, there was about probably 4 or 5 at the very top, and one that was just like an outlier. I think he was about $1 million more than most of the other guys. And when we got on the phone with him, we were kind of curious as to whether or not, like, how he came to that valuation. Why was he so much further up the food chain, so to speak? And he was very clear. He said, you're probably wondering why we bid as much as we did. I knew that was the only way we were going to get your attention. And then he kind of proceeded to lay out his business plan to us to demonstrate that he wasn't foolish, that he wasn't going to come in and retrade us because he was overpaying. And it was just fascinating. And this was a family office that was probably in that neighborhood of a $4 to $5 billion player. And so even though they were a big player, they were not a player in multifamily, and that's where they wanted to get to. And so for them to get into that game, they decided to overpay, right? And now with that one property, it kind of springboards them into finding other deals. So this isn't to say that you need to overpay by $1 million. This isn't to say that when you're worth $5 billion that it's still difficult to find deals. I'm just giving you different scenarios because, like, there is no one book. There is no one way to invest in commercial real estate. There is no one way to see deal flow. Everything is situation specific because you're dealing with people and markets fluctuate. And so this is just to give you kind of context, and then you start to apply it to your own market. So hopefully this was helpful. Do the homework, comment below. I'll see you tomorrow.